The Carolina Hurricanes are moving on to the second round. The same cannot be said for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there's fantasy fallout from both series that we're talking all about on today's episode.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The NHL postseason is alive and well, which is why you're tapped back into your daily 30-minute source for fantasy, NHL news, and betting breakdowns. Welcome back inside the lab, my friends, to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele, Rodin. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out, salute, much love, and thank you so much to the everydayers holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where new customers to FanDuel get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager hits. Mr. Rodin, we'll get to our bets for Wednesday night. Things in the NHL are abuzz, and even though things didn't go our way clearly as Toronto Maple Leafs fans on Tuesday night, and we'll get there, there is still so much to love about the hockey we're seeing every single night. The Carolina Hurricanes, I want to start there, but we will also touch on Edmonton 3-2. How you feeling about that one, Steele? And also your boys, the Minnesota Wild, another close-fought battle. Let's start in Carolina, though. This team, we know the record. We know everything that's been said about this squad. They're looking good, Steele, but can they do what they haven't been able to and get it done in these later rounds? That's the big question.
I'll tell you what, that was not the fashion of Game 5 I was expecting from either of those teams, especially the flurry of goals, 3-0 New Jersey in the first period. Hurricanes tie it up. It's 4-4 after 2.
Yeah.
Again, 4-4 after 2, and then double overtime. Dawson Mercer takes a really bad double minor. Sebastian on the power play. He's got 2 power play goals in this game. Andrei Svechnikov has 5 goals in that series. Taylor Hall had a really good Game 5. Logan Stankoven was all over the puck. Jackson Blake pots his first one of the playoffs as well. There's a lot of really good options with this Carolina Hurricanes when we talk about the fantasy angle. Sebastian Aho, again, one of the most underrated centermen in the league. Your boy Seth Jarvis gets it done on both sides of the ice, playmaking ability. And then these depth guys, like I've mentioned, I really like what I'm seeing from Logan Stankoven. You can really take a look at Jackson Blake as well and the regular season he had, and if he can contribute in the postseason, which he just did in Game 5 as well. On the back end, Shane Gostisbehere and Dmitry Orlov are some good options. Jacob Slavin, of course. The one thing I have to say that is a big concern fantasy-wise, as well as for the Carolina Hurricanes moving forward, they need Frederik Andersen in the crease. I have little to zero confidence in Pyotr Kochetkov to be the guy to take them into the Eastern Conference Finals or even the Stanley Cup
That's
Finals.
fair.
He was an absolute liability majority of the time throughout the fantasy regular season. He comes in, he looks super shaky in Game 5. You know, that really could have gone the Devils' way if there wasn't that flurry of offensive from that top 6 group. That's the main concern for me. I know Frederik Andersen's day-to-day. He should be back and ready to go for the next series in round 2, whoever it is, Washington Capitals or Montreal Canadiens. But if it's Kochetkov, that's some serious concern. I put him right there in the same category as Stuart Skinner right now. And going into next year, he's one of those goaltenders I honestly am most likely going to stay away from because too many times he was letting in 1-2 goals on the first 4 shots.
Super interesting, actually, that you bring up the goaltending for Carolina because in terms of fantasy takeaways, this is right at the top of the list. So I think you really nailed this one because you know how I felt about Kochetkov, too. We had Amato on of Sportsnet, Michael Amato, the goalie guru, talk about Kochetkov at length a season ago, even a season and a half ago. He's gotten it done at every level, but the NHL has seemed to given him fits. And can he still be a goaltender that is serviceable or usable in the fantasy realm? For sure. But right now, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And headed into next season, I understand Freddie has been banged up. Some of those concerns, health concerns, will obviously impact his fantasy value, but some of those haven't even been necessary. He's had serious health issues, not even related to injury. We know all about it. However, in his career, Steele, a 915 save percentage jumps off the page. I know he's 35 years old, but he is still a very useful fantasy piece, especially when you play behind the defensively stingy unit that this Carolina Hurricanes team runs out. And I know defense wasn't exactly at the forefront in the final game there, 5-4, a bit of run and gun, and they were loose at the beginning of that game. By the way, shout out to Jacob Markstrom. I believe he made like 48 saves or something.
Yeah, he was really good.
That game would have gone crooked a lot faster. Postseason numbers for Freddie Andersen, almost identical, Steele. 915 save percentage and a 2.40 goals against. He's been good in the postseason. He is serviceable. I like that you're highlighting this. To me, it comes down to the Carolina Hurricanes, and we know that they haven't been able to get it done in the later rounds. Let's see what they do against their next opponent. That's going to be telling, looking like probably it's the Washington Capitals. However, next season, this is a team that I think with some of these young pieces that you just mentioned, Stankoven, Jackson Blake, you know how I feel about Seth Jarvis. This might be one of those teams that, given that they're perennial regular season showouts, I think we can throw this team, Svechnikov, Aho, Slavin on the back end, the goalies. This might be one of those fantasy teams that we regularly go back to for some really good options, regardless of what they end up doing come May.
Yeah, there's some really good options there. And honestly, the only bright spot of what happened on Tuesday, everything else, I'm in complete shock right now. And it's so hard to wrap my head around exactly what happened in all three of those other matchups that took place on Tuesday. Maple Leafs down bad. They lose game 5. Wild. They should have won that one. They go down and they're down 3-2 in that series. Kings are just absolutely crumbling right now. They're down 3-2 after 3 straight losses.
I'll
to the
take
Edmonton
that one,
Oilers.
but yeah, I hear you.
You want to start with the Leafs and Senators, and then we can talk about them a little bit more after the break as well. I mean, I'm absolutely flabbergasted at what I saw last night. That was completely and utterly embarrassing first of all, from the Maple Leafs themselves. Second of all, the Scotiabank Arena you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet in there. The game was 1-0 for God's sake. It was 1-0. And there was no, rally behind the boys. That enough with the Brady sucks chants. Like, it's all fun and it's all good and fun, from time to time. But start rallying the boys. Get behind them. Go Leafs, go Leafs totally. Forever. Like, where's the hype behind them in a 1-0 game in your own barn? That's embarrassing in itself. But the big boys not showing up. 1 goal from Nylander, 1 goal from Matthews, 1 goal from Marner in 5 games now. They're a big goose egg on the score sheet. 4-0 Senators. And yeah, that was just that was an atrocious game. I thought Stolarz actually played pretty decent. I don't think either team really better than the other. A couple of shots get through from the Ottawa Senators, 2 empty netters for them too. The game was a lot closer than 4-0, of course, but yeah, that's embarrassing. You have the chance to close it out. It's I believe the record now in clinching series games is 1-13 now. It just keeps worse and worse. The only bright spot is I'm still fine. I'm still confident with them. I picked the Leafs in 6. So
yeah, we both did.
We both picked the Leafs in 6, so our predictions are still up and running. And I'm talking about that. I'll tell you this: if it comes back for Game 7, if it comes back to Scotiabank for Game 7, I'm gonna be sweating. I'll tell you that right now. I'll be sweating, and I don't know if I can stop it.
There is so many different ways that we could take this, because also, Steele, let's be honest. I just mentioned about a team that you can plunder for fantasy value, elite fantasy value in the Carolina Hurricanes. Separate all of this madness for a second. That's what the Leafs have been, and this might be a very different looking team if they blow this one, Steele, in a brand new fashion. We've seen them start slow, come back, and then blow it. We've seen them blow it in the end. We haven't seen them go up 3-0 and completely come apart. It was 2 games, and let's be honest, it bounces the other way and we sweep and we're not talking about this. However, this is the postseason and this is what happens. I want to talk about the defense. I want to talk about the rest of this series. I do want to talk about the Kings and Oilers for sure. We got to touch on your Wild. There's a lot to get to, including tonight's big-time bets. Let's get there right after the break. We'll try and keep it tight. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. When you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel, you get $250 back in bonus bets if your first bet hits. We are loving FanDuel. Betting is so easy, safe, and secure. Player props, live in-play betting, you know what it is, threes, steals, assists. FanDuel has all the ways to get in on it, and we are loving the same-game parlays. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets right now.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. Flip and I really do appreciate all that love and support. I got a couple more points I want to make about this Leafs and Senators series right now, but over to you, my friend. The defense, what did you see from them in Game 5?
I think, given the narrative of these big guns not showing up when it means the most, and then you have a performance from your D-core and your forward group, to be honest, that fourth line deserves a lot of credit for playing great all series long. Lorentz, Lawton, and I think it's Yarncroke down there with them. They have been great. 17 shots on net, and you have the offensive pieces that you have, and you lose 4-0. To me, is such a rattling way to lose this game, Steele. That Game 6, I am going to be in a barf bag on pins and needles. Credit due to the Ottawa Senators. Let's be clear as well.
Yeah.
Their big guns showed up. Shabbat, Kachuk, Stützle, they all were difference makers in this game. And I'll leave it at this and then back to you because we have a lot of other hockey to get to and fantasy takes. However, the nature in which I saw the Leafs skating around last night, and maybe it has something to do with that poor crowd, I don't know. They were almost waiting for something to happen. They were playing reactionary hockey, and it was so close for a good chunk of that game, and one goal went in, and it was all over. That is the most concerning, the energy, the lack of killer instinct that you and I can't come on here and defend. We can defend a lot of angles. We've taken a lot of heat as Leafs fans. That's one we have to sit here and go, that is just a fact. They wilted again. They have another chance, Steele, Thursday night in Ottawa. And then after that, I don't know what to say, man. I honestly don't anymore.
Look, and that just makes me look at the Carolina Hurricanes and be like, that's a team that has killer instincts. Yeah, maybe they struggle after the first round, but in the first round, they have that killer instinct to get the job done in a closing game, closing series game. So, that's
Marner was -4, by the way.
Yeah, no, that was a bad game. It was a bad game overall from the Toronto Maple Leafs offensively. I mean, again, that Austin Matthews post in Game 4 is haunting all of us right now.
Oh, yeah.
And last point I want to make, I think it's time to bring Nicholas Robertson back into the lineup.
Oh, geez.
You know how I feel about Robertson.
Yeah.
And that's
where we're at.
Bad. That's where we're at right now. Take Pacioretty out of the lineup. Honestly, at this point, I might take Bobby McMann out of the lineup. He's been absolute garbage as well, but I still think he brings some value over
Cure the Sucrose music, Steele.
Bring in Robertson, take out Pacioretty, get some speed going again on that third line. Pacioretty's just too slow for my liking right now, even though I like the physicality. We'll leave it at that. Robertson in for Pacioretty. Please do that. Craig Berube, we would love you very, very much. Wild and Golden Knights. Real quickly, we'll get to the Kings and Oilers before bets as well. Wild and Golden Knights. Vegas takes a 3-2 series lead. Again, this is I'm in absolute shambles right now. I don't even know. I don't even know how to react to any of this because this should be 3-1 Wild. It should be 3-1. Or sorry, honestly the series should be over. It should have been 3-1 Wild after Game 4, and then they should have won last night if it wasn't for Gustav Nyquist having a sliver of room over the blue line and creating an offside for them. Ryan Hartman actually scored in the final minute of that game, but the goal got overturned for offside from Gustav Nyquist. And then, of course, Brett Howden, of all guys, who's been tremendous all season for Vegas, scores the overtime winner. He's been good in this series, but it's just one of those nights where, they keep kicking you when you're down, man. They just keep kicking you when you're down. It was one after another: Leafs, Wild, Kings. And now I'm just like, oh God, I can't take it anymore.
I'm here for you, pal. This is part of the game that we come on here. We try and keep it legit, unbiased, and bring the energy every single day for you guys. 30 minutes in and out, by the way. Matt Boldy, 5 goals this series, Steele. You and I have spoke about this player at length, and he's here now. He's arrived.
Here.
And he is being a difference maker. And headed into next season, I don't always like to tip my cap. Matt Boldy has got to be a player that I'm going after hot and heavy in fantasy drafts. And I think regardless of how this series shakes out, the Minnesota Wild deserve so much credit. The Vegas Golden Knights were a lot of people's pick as the Stanley Cup champion once again this season. And for good reason. A really good balanced blue line, experienced forward group, and a good goaltender. And I think what I'm taking away from this one, by the way, shots on net in Game 5, 32-22, but the number that really shows why I think the even more credit due to Minnesota. Vegas was 61% in the faceoff dot, and Minnie was still right there. This team is good. And if Billy G does what we say he should be doing, and I know that's easier said than done just to go out there and add another big gun, if they make some moves in the offseason, Steele, when that free agency window opens in July 1, this team is someone that I'm double circling for a ton of fantasy value next season, and it's pouring right out of their 2 big guns in Boldy and Kaprizov.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about this team, even though they're down 3-2 in this series. And, I wouldn't classify them as a gold mine fantasy option wise going into next year, but there's some really good options for sure. A guy like Matt Zuccarello, I still think he brings a ton of value, even though maybe offensively or goal scoring.
Eriksson could be a sleeper considering how slow he was this year.
Yeah, with the injuries, how slow he started the season, Joel Eriksson is definitely going to be a sneaky player going into next year. Real quick, before we get to break and big-time bets, let's start the Oilers-Kings conversation.
Sure.
Edmonton, 3 wins in a row. They take a 3-2 series lead, obviously on the backs of Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and Evan Bouchard, who have combined for a total of 27 points in 5 games. But Game 5 was actually the depth scoring. You got Janmark, you got Evander Kane, you got Nugent Hopkins getting all goals, and then some playmaking and assists, of course, from Bouchard, McDavid, Klingberg, Draisaitl. But Evander Kane, the king killer himself, 2 goals, 1 assist in 4 games since returning. He's been incredible for them. And yeah, this is, as much as we want to talk about the Leafs and the choke job they're sort of putting on right now, I think we got to talk about the Kings and this choke job they're doing in this conference as well. This series should be over as well. It should have been 3-1. It should have been 3-1 after Game 4. They come back to LA and they win at home because they have the best home record. They can't get it done. This is quite embarrassing right now. So look, this for me, it's going 7 games now. I'm still rocking with the Kings. They need to wake up and need to wake up fast.
Yeah, they do. And here's my thing. This blue line has kind of punched above its weight class all season long. Mikey Andersen, Edmondson, Brant Clark, Jordan Spence, Gavrikov. It's not sexy. Have they been getting it done? Yeah. And I know 3 goals is 3 goals. Darcy Kemper bailed this team out last night. And if not, he 42 saves he turns aside. And your LA Kings only get 1 goal. I guess what I'm just saying here, Steele, and the blue line on the other side doesn't jump off the page. Somebody has to be a real difference maker for this Kings team in the clutch moments. And I know they got their goals in the first couple of games, but they have shriveled away in the last couple. And now the confidence is really growing for Edmonton, similarly for the Ottawa Senators. And in the postseason, momentum can be a freight train, a runaway train that you cannot stop, regardless of how they look on paper, regardless of what stars you have. When that momentum starts to go, and it's rolling now for Edmonton, Calvin Pickard as well. Is Calvin Pickard someone we got to talk about next year for fantasy? This is now just becoming still hard to keep track of. All of these moving parts, but I know this. These LA Kings smell the doo-doo in the shorts, and Edmonton is coming for them. I told you I had Edmonton still. I think I took Oilers in 7, and I've been messaging you that. Now it's time to consider it might be Oilers in 6.
Yes, it's not looking good for the Kings right now. I'll say that, and I really did not think Calvin Pickard would be the King Slayer that he is right now. I had no confidence in that tandem going into the series. Stuart Skinner proved me right. Calvin Pickard's proved me wrong. That's the case right now. That's the difference maker in the last 3 games. Is Pickard has found his mojo, and he has kept the ball rolling over the span of games 3, 4, and 5. Taking a 3-2 series lead for Edmonton. When we come back after the break, we got loads of big-time bets on the docket for all of you. Lightning Panthers, Game 5. Jets Blues, Game 5. Canadians Caps, Game 5. We got 2 potential elimination games, and we're going to talk about all of that and more when we come back after this short break. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. We love you. We appreciate you all out there. Thank you so much for all that love throughout this portion of the season as well. Flip, 3 games on the schedule, my friend. I'm keeping it nice and easy tonight.
Like
just
that.
3 money line picks. But
like
over to you, my friend. Where are you looking first?
I think the Montreal Canadiens deserve a whole lot of credit for how that they have performed in this season and how they came together down the stretch. A lot of really good young pieces are being established here in Montreal, and I think they're going to be a really good team for a long time. Their time isn't now. I think the Washington Capitals have a special season working, and I got to tip my cap to them as well. And I think that the Washington Capitals get it done here at home and finish this series. So I say Caps on the money line, and, I'll just spit out all 3 picks. Dylan Strome has really impressed me. And, you and I spoke about players hurting and boosting their fantasy value for next season. We already love Dylan Strome coming off a career year in points. I believe he had like 79 or 80 or something like that. He leads the series in points with 7. Hit me with Dylan Strome anytime point, because this is a parlay. I'm okay to take, you're probably going to have to pay like minus 190 or something like that.
Yeah.
However, when this team goes offensively, yeah, Ovi's been a big part of it. It's been Dylan Strome right at the center of it. So Caps money line, credit due to the Habs, but it's not their time just yet. Caps money line, Dylan Strome anytime point as the lock. And I think one of my favorite picks of this entire start of the playoffs has been under Florida Tampa, and I know it went over the total once. I love this one to be close scoring. I love it to be tight checking from the jump. I'm going to take it to 6.5 Steele because I've been doing that and it's been working out. I love the under. This one's going to be close from the jump. Hit me with the under in the Battle of Florida at 6.5.
Yeah, I like the under 6.5. I like the Dylan Strome player prop. And while I do agree with you with the Caps pick, they deserve a ton of respect alongside the Montreal Canadiens as well. I'm going a little bit of a different route, taking a different angle for these picks. Number 1, Lightning on the money line against the Florida Panthers. Sure. They're back in Tampa Bay. They're without Brandon Hagel, of course, after that injury and that just ridiculous play from Aaron Ekblad, who has been suspended for 2 games as well. Just a vicious elbow to the chin.
Really dumb.
Disgusting play. He's gone. I think obviously losing Hagel and Ekblad are going to affect both teams a little bit differently. But this is a Lightning team that has prospered and has very strong determination. And when they're down and out, when you think they're down and out, they're going to battle as hard as ever. So I like the Lightning on the money line at home in this elimination game for them. I'm also taking the Canadians on the money line against
next side bet.
Capitals. A little bit of a side bet. I picked the Capitals to win the series in 6. And I think just like along what you said, the Canadians deserve a ton of respect. I think they're going to come out swinging. I think a guy like Josh Andersen could have a really big game physically and offensively for the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, their big guns, Nick Suzuki, Caulfield, Lane Hudson, and Demidov are going to be in on the action. If you can just get get some outstanding goaltending from Dobish, this Canadiens team is in this series right now. It really could be different from what we've from the 3-1 series lead for the Washington Capitals. That's the second pick. Last and third pick, Jets on the money line against the St. Louis Blues.
I like that one.
It has been a very difficult last 4 days for Connor Hellebuck and the Winnipeg Jets. They got absolutely slapped around, embarrassingly so, in games 3 and 4 in St. Louis. Connor Hellebuck struggles on the road, clearly, but at home, he's been very, very solid for this team. And of course, again, just the best goaltender in the postseason right now. I don't care what the numbers say. He's still the best fantasy goaltender. He's still the best goaltender in my eyes right now. Jets money line, third and final pick. Lock of the night, though. That actually is the lock of the night. Jets money line is my lock of the night. Thank you so much. Thank you, Flip. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for everyone out there making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets. We shall see you back here again tomorrow for more playoff action.
Peace.